Testing audio. Test, test.
No, I was going to go in the middle. I just didn't want to be the focal point if people meandered in. How are you feeling?
Less nervous now that I got that out of the way.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
It really was.
Thanks, dude.
Really good.
I just told myself when the tangles were happening, I was like, this is on purpose.
Exactly. It is on purpose. No one knows that it's not.
Yeah, my brother asked me, he was like, that was planned, right? I was like, sure.
Sure was. It tangled just the perfect way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm right here, but you can sit right there. There's room in the front if you'd like to come in.
Is this good for the mic?
Yeah. Yeah.
Molly, can you turn the lights off or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can, when I introduce, I can go over and
Okay, cool.
come out.
The lights are shining in my eyeballs. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's not going to work. We can do that. Should we wait for more people or we got?
a few more, I think.
Courtney, it's caught on the cord.
Oh, she did it. She might have just broken a
She might
computer.
have just, that computer might have just.
Where's Aiden?
I don't know.
Oh, I see him. I see
There's
him.
room up here if you'd like to take a seat closer. All right?
Yeah,
All right.
let's do it.
All right, everyone, bye. Thank you so much for coming to the second half of our wonderful BFA night, and thank you for coming to Julia's performance. Woo! That was really beautiful. All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Julia, who is from Reno, Nevada. She transferred to SNU from UNR in 2018. And as we saw in the gallery, Julia has an interdisciplinary approach to her practice using ceramics, cyanotype, and other mixed media to explore visual metaphor and emotional concepts. Julia makes work about emotional conflict, self-reflection, and the preservation of the ephemeral. And I will let Julia say the rest. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for coming. I'm noticing a lot of people from my mapper a few years ago, which means I have fans. So this is crazy. I've been thinking about this day for about 4 years. So as Molly said, I transferred from UNR to SNU in 2018, and it was the best decision I've ever made. I want to open the talk by just thanking everyone for coming. Congratulations to Victor, by the way. I don't know if he's stuck around, but that was incredible, and I'm honored to be having a show on the same night as him. So I want to just start by talking about what blue is. So in olden days, in history, blue was really rare. It's not a resource that was found in nature very easily. In the 7500 BCE, we started mining, not we, I apologize, it started being mined in the mountains of Afghanistan, lapis lazuli. This is an incredibly rare stone. It's a rich blue pigment, and this made its way to Europe. So we start pulverizing it into paste, making pigments, making paint. It's extremely expensive. Even Michelangelo could not afford it. It was viewed as a reverent and divine material. It's used to represent objects of devotion, tranquility, and peace. It's a color marked by the effort and desire that is upon it. And then another interesting thing I've learned through reading about this color is that we don't see it on figures until about the 12th century. So we see it on Mother Mary in her robes, royal figures, godly figures. It's depicted on them. It's this untangible, holy color because it was so rare and hard to reach. So I just kind of want to discuss, like, why is blue so awe-inspiring? Why is it something that feels so magical and unreachable, untouchable? Why is that? Is it the emptiness? Is it the vastness? Is it the hopefulness that's maybe inside of it? Color speaks a language that most people can understand, no matter where you're from. It adds a sensibility to our lives that most of us, again, can experience in one moment. But blue doesn't really do that. Blue is atmospheric. If anyone goes to Tahoe early in the morning and you look across the lake and you see how those mountains are kind of this misty blue, you see the alpenglow. If you were to sail across Lake Tahoe, try and grab that out of the sky, it's impossible. It's an atmosphere, it's a feeling, it's ephemeral. So someone that was fascinated with holding on to that color was Klein. He's a huge influence of mine just since recently I've been reading about his process with the color blue. He's a French artist. He was in Paris. It was said that he told all of his friends he dreamed of holding the color in the sky. He had an obsession with blue. In a discussion with some poet and artist friends of his, he said, "You guys can have the earth, you can have the ground, but I want the sky." So he developed this secret recipe when he had access to that ultramarine blue, that pigment. He met with, I did not find the name, but it was one of the most famous paint makers in Paris, who made Pablo Picasso's blue, if you're familiar with Picasso's blue period. He formulated YKB, or YKB, Yves Klein blue. So he uses on everything. In the New York Times, he was called an obsessive artist. He's obsessed with the color blue. He painted these large canvases in this beautiful ultramarine YKB blue, and he called them windows. At his first show, he had 11 of them. He priced them all vastly differently, and he sold 3 of them. He was also not about using a paintbrush. He thought a paintbrush was too psychological, too predictable. So he started to find friends that were models. And Joanna here was a ballerina that lived as a roommate with him. They were great friends, and they started working with blue, allowing it to live in its most organic form. So in my work, I'm also kind of experimenting with this idea of holding on to the ephemeral, grabbing things that aren't tangible. I'm fascinated by the desire to reach something intangible. There's a longing for closeness and distance, and there's a tranquility that's correlated with solitude that I'm really attracted to. I'm trying to, with this body of work that you've seen, I'm trying to explore the idiosyncrasies of humans by experiencing my own feelings in my habits and notions within my own work. So I'm using lineage as a window to my past, to my family's past. With most of my grandparents, I spent more time with them as a younger child, and as I grew up, I didn't feel that I got the opportunity to spend that time with them in person, and it's something I've always been kind of bummed about. My grandparents were all incredible people, and they're incredibly inspiring with the paths they took in each of their lives. I've always had an immense amount of respect for them. I felt drawn to recreating these memories, and I did it in cyanotype because I think that it offers a really interesting place for negative space to exist. I think that the blue is a place where this negative space can be held, protected, and permanent. Seeing them in a narrative format also helps me to kind of think about my path and the choices I'm making. I'm in a place in my life where I'm graduating. I'm moving to the East Coast in a few months. And there's a lot of new opportunities coming up in my life. And it's overwhelming, it's sad, it's exciting, it's confusing. And I think I'm just trying to paid a little bit of homage to these people that were in my life and played role models for me when I was a kid. And when I started making cyanotypes, I started thinking about their daily routines and what rituals they practiced or what habits they had on a daily basis, like the perfume they wore or the tea they drank. So going into a little bit of more detail about the work I'm doing in ceramics. I've been interested in accretion pretty much since I started working in ceramics. Accretion is the process of an accumulation of material on a surface. And I think that for me, pattern and repetition is a comfortable way to work. I think that it suggests meditation, and for me, it's like a meditative form of learning about the material. I started working as a lab tech 2 years ago in the ceramics department, so I've been taught how to recycle clay, fire kilns, clean up clay off the floor, and basically what the material can do, what forms it can hold, what space it can hold. I'm fascinated by that. I work a lot with raw clay. I really appreciate it in that form. Also, I hate glazing, but in a more real sense, I'm really attracted to how the material changes when it's fired, how it can hold gravity, but it can also hold negative space. And with the accretion part, with adding all these little bits, it kind of makes me think about cooking, and I love cooking. My family knows I like cooking a lot, and I think it kind of mimics that for me. There's a lot of rolling and cutting and measuring, and it kind of feels like I'm decorating a cake when I'm putting all these little things on. And I was telling Anna, my friend, how meditative it is when I'm working in accretion, adding all these little pieces, repeating this motion. It's truly the only meditation I've really found to work for myself. Rebecca Louise Law is a London-based contemporary artist. I actually found this in the past few days. I didn't know about her until I was looking up flower art because I have flowers in my work. Flowers for me, particularly carnations, make me think about death and passing and how to preserve those memories. So for me, I dipped in a material that is pretty vitreous, and you can't really pass through it. So these carnations are preserved in this material that can't really be touched, but at the same time, it's incredibly fragile. So she was inspiring to me. She works with the ephemeral. She works with ephemeral art, and she kind of celebrates the everlasting existence of nature, but at the same time, the fragility. I find that really interesting. Okay. So going into one of my big ideas with my work is studying time, thinking about how time changes us as people. I'm really fascinated by the physical effects that time has on us. Time can feel monumental and forever and super heavy on us, but at the same time, it can feel way too fast. It can feel ambiguous and perpetual. And that's something that has always fascinated me, and I kind of want to challenge that with my work. My main intention while I'm working is to kind of attempt to solidify ephemeral moments. I want to question the permanence of our experiences. Is it possible to solidify a memory? Is it possible to recreate things you've lost? So when I'm working in things, and when I'm working in ways of thinking about time and how it's passing, I'm constantly thinking about the things I've lost and the things that I haven't lost yet simultaneously. And I'm mourning those things that I've lost, and I'm almost frantically wanting to preserve in time the things that I haven't lost yet. So I wanted to speak more about my practice. The next few photos were by Courtney Ropp, excellent photographer, and I love you so much. it's so cool to see this. I've never really had anyone photograph me when I'm working, and it seems so simple, but it's really meant the world. I need a sip of my margarita. I'm 21, don't worry. 23. So again, I worked as a lab tech. So I discovered how to work with clay by learning how to take care of it. Working as a lab tech has offered me time with the material that's allowed me to learn about how it behaves in different environments, how it's going to behave in a firing, how it's going to dry out, if it holds weight for a certain amount of time. And it's also, I've had opportunities to be a TA with Sherry Lee O'Connor and Rick Parsons, and teaching people about it has been huge. I think every time I teach someone about it, I learn something new, like how to score and slip, or how to make sure you don't have an air pocket. I'm always thinking about that when I'm teaching people. And it kind of leads me to want to do more experimentation and obtain more knowledge about the material. I'm fascinated by clay. I have fallen in love with this material in the past 2 years, and I cannot wait to keep working with it. So I practice a ritual of ongoing maintenance with my work. Maintenance, tending to things, caring for things is a ritual that I embody. It's part of my personality. I've always been a caregiver. I'm a helper. I think about these things often, specifically with people that are in my life constantly, like my family, my partner, things like that. And it's been really interesting to kind of practice this ritual within my work. It's allowed me to create this connection with the work from beginning to end. And I have spent 10, 12-hour days at the studio for the past 2 months, and it's been incredible. It's really sad to leave. This studio has become my second home. I've showered here. I've thought about sleeping here. And it's really hard to put into words. I was working on this all day. Like, how am I going to talk about how much this material means to me, how much this place that I'm at means to me? And I couldn't find how to do it. I just want everyone to know that the work that's downstairs is a complete piece of my body. It is completely invested of my soul. And it's just been such an honor to work with it and seeing it in the gallery and tending to it, checking on it every day. My boyfriend got into town yesterday, and I kept saying, "Are you sure you don't want to go see the gallery?" Because I really want to go check on my work. It's just crazy how I've formed this bond with something that's inanimate, but at the same time, I'm creating things that are tangible for me, and I'm creating my memories in a tangible form. So more on that. I've built spaces for things to grow. I think that this allows space for experimentation, for failure, for the element of chance, which is something I've always been fascinated with. When I approach my work with this intention of thoughtfulness and care, it allows me to build upon that emotional connection. And just the way that I've worked through a lot of these pieces, specifically the plant beds and the ceramics and I guess everything, it's just crazy how my mind has shifted. I'm constantly thinking about these pieces as if they're like my children. I'm constantly thinking about new ideas, stay up late at night writing about them. And I think that's a beautiful thing, that I'm allowing myself to just invest myself fully into this body of work. So in conclusion, again, I want to thank everyone. I encourage you to go back downstairs, and there's some sound effects that I've recorded throughout really important experiences in my life that I encourage you to take your time with them. I encourage you to listen to them, and I want you to sit with each piece and think about what it's saying. I hope that I've encouraged you to think about your memories being tangible, and maybe that you've questioned the idea of time a little bit tonight. I have a lot of thank yous, so buckle up. I want to thank my parents, and my family. My parents have gotten me through school, and it's just so crazy that I'm done. I want to give my parents the cyanotypes of your parents. I want you to have those. I want to thank this studio. This, again, has become a second home. I fired my first kiln in this building. I've learned how to teach people in this building. I have changed as a human, emotionally and psychologically. Thank you to this department. The interdisciplinary approach that the art department takes when teaching students is something I don't think I will find anywhere else in my life. I want to thank Anza for your time with art history. I've enjoyed your class so much, and I hope I was right about 7500 BCE. Chris, right there. I'm not a digital artist, but you've been so invested in my work and helping me with the video that's downstairs. I encourage you guys to watch the whole thing if you can. I just appreciate that, and I have so much respect for you. Molly, I wish I met you like 4 years ago. I think you really understand me, and I think that you've helped me with so much of my vocabulary and my expression of myself through my work. And that's huge for me, because I just cry through a whole presentation. And I've only cried like 3 times. I want to thank Mary Kenny. Mary wasn't with us this semester, but you took time out of your personal life to come talk to me. And even if you didn't even critique my work, just hanging out with you was enough. So I thank you for that. I want to thank Sherry Lee O'Connor for advising me. You were the first person I met at SNU, and your enthusiasm for this department it's unmatched. It will never be matched. I want to thank Lizzie Thibodeau for saving me from probably falling asleep at the wheel a few times and letting me sleep on your couch instead of driving home to Reno. You've been like the big sister I've never had. I don't know where you are. There you are. But Lizzie's helped me with so much, from working through pieces to working through the install. She's been there every second. I want to thank Hannah Freedom. She's in Denmark, so she's probably sleeping. But Hannah taught me how to do what I do as a lab tech, and she's opened my eyes to a world that I want to be in for the rest of my life. I want to work with ceramics for the rest of my life. And Hannah is such an incredible artist and person, and I get to see her in a few weeks, and I can't wait. I want to thank Anna Bonnell. I've looked up to Anna for a long time. I remember being very intimidated by her because she was a lab tech when I was like a freshman. I remember her yelling at us about cleaning our bats, which is a ceramic thing if you don't know. But thank you for spending time with me. I don't know where you are either, but over there. Hi. I can't even put it to words, but it's been amazing to just get closer with you and spend time working with you, and I can't wait to do a soda fire together. And last but not least, Rick Parsons. Rick couldn't be here because his son is a little under the weather, but Rick is an incredible human being. He's taught me more than I would ever thought I would learn about ceramics and kilns and firing. And like I said, I've fallen in love with this material and this practice, and it's something that I want to do for the rest of my life. I remember I used to be a very two-dimensional artist. I was pretty stuck on painting, and I kind of confined myself to that world. I remember taking a Rick Parsons class, and I had recently broken a shoulder. I was in a sling, and we had to build self-portraits. Rick came over and pretended like his arm was broken to feel how I would feel trying to build something in sculpture. And I just remember thinking, like, holy shit, I want to hang out with this guy more. I want to learn from him. And I have immense respect for you, Rick, if you're listening. It's meant the world to me to work for you and with you, and I consider you one of my best friends and the most important mentors I'll ever have in my life. And yeah, I think that's all the thank yous. It's crazy that this is over. It's really sad that it's over, but I'm excited for the future. I'm so incredibly proud of the work that's downstairs, and again, I hope you spend a little more time with it if you can. So thank you.
All right, at this point, we're going to open it up to questions.
Ooh, that's rough. No questions. Nikki.
Can you talk a little bit about the making of bread and the importance of that and how it pertains to the rest of your show as a whole?
Yeah, so like most people, I started making sourdough in quarantine. And I think for me, like, I've loved baking my whole entire life. I used to want to go to culinary school. You'll see an image of my meme, my grandmother, my mom's mom, downstairs. She opened a bakery pretty much all by herself in the 70s, and I just was so impressed by her always. And it's almost like ceramics practice. Like, when you're building a loaf, you have to tend to it, you have to knead it, you have to check it, you have to let it rest. And with ceramics, we have to do that too, right? We have to make sure it's not drying out. There's so many other things you have to do to maintain clay. And with the bread in the show, I'll go back to a picture. Anna Bonnell actually gifted me a bread machine from probably like the 50s. And it does all the kneading for you. It does the rising. And it was the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I put the same exact ingredients that I put into my sourdough, which if you ate that tonight, the bread, that was my bread. So hope you liked it. But it was just cool to see it in a different environment, but then it ended up in a really similar state. I thought that was interesting. And then I didn't think I was going to use it, so I left it on my shelf, and it got moldy. And I just thought, like, wow, this embodies what I'm talking about when I'm talking about time so well. It gives me this feeling that if you might neglect something, maybe some things don't want to be taken care of, but they're still beautiful. So this bread in particular is kind of, it's truly like a metaphor of time passing and how sometimes letting things be is not always a bad thing. And I think it taught me this really huge lesson of, like, yes, I'm moving away and I'm leaving my family, which is hard. But it's still this beautiful thing. It's still itself. And I think that's really cool. I think I put this burden on myself that I need to check on family and care for them and, worry about them. And that's not a realistic expectation to put on yourself. Of course, I'm still going to think about them every day. I think about them when I make my work. But it's okay to move on. And it's just going to be a new learning experience of how to navigate that world of being apart. And even though I'm so excited to move on to a different place in the world and explore the East Coast, I'm still recognizing and mourning this life that I've had here, I guess. So the bread has a lot in there.
It's delicious.
Thanks. Thank you. Hannah. Thanks. Thanks.
And maybe you could dive into your performance piece a little bit.
Sure. So that piece, I love that one because it kind of stemmed from an idea at my mapper. In my mapper, I was painting landscapes, and then I was painting telephone lines, and I was whiting them out. I was kind of experimenting with this idea of missing communication or missing connections. And now that I'm moving far away, I'm kind of thinking about this maintenance of this distance that's going to be present. And so the plant beds are supposed to kind of represent what is here in Nevada, particularly for me. My family's here. My whole family's on the West Coast. So being able to tend to those for the last few weeks made me feel a little more secure about leaving things behind and letting things be how they are and exist. I have a really hard time letting go of control, I think, particularly with things that I know I can handle. And like if I know I can help you, I'm going to try and help you. And some people don't want help. And so with the tying of the strings, it was me trying to represent physically what it feels like to maintain this distance and to keep those connections. And my boyfriend and I have been in long distance on and off in our 4 years of relationship, probably almost a year's worth of time. And until you're in a long distance relationship, it's so hard to explain to other people the reality of that and the missing communication that happens and the misconnections and things like that. And it's like a whole other level of relationship on top of that. And so me tying the strings was just kind of a way for me to remind myself that it's in my control. And I'm a person who, when I'm in control of things and I can plan things, I do well. And the knots were not planned, the tangles. So that was like the world just telling me, like, stop planning, just let the tangles happen. And like, shit happens, like I really love the way they added tension to the line, because tension happens when distance is there. And I learned a lot from that performance actually tonight. I thought that was really cool experience for me. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm an alumni.
Awesome.
I have a question regarding time. There seems to be a pretty strong Venn diagram of past, present, and future, and I think you're in the middle of it.
Mm.
Do you feel that your artwork pays homage and or leaves a legacy behind in terms of what impact you feel you've had here at this school or with people around you? Artwork can be kind of used as a tool to kind of leave something behind for others. Do you feel that your artwork does that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I try and be a role model, I think, for younger students. I've talked to a few of them that are younger. I'm like, do your BFA, like, keep making art. And like, I remember being a sophomore coming here and thinking like, I'm just gonna do my BA and I'm not that good. And I've had to try so hard to learn that art isn't what I think it is, and like preach, right? And like I don't know, it's in terms of like leaving a legacy behind or anything. I think that I'm thinking of younger students when you ask me that question, because I've been a TA a few times. I've worked with younger students, and it's been incredible. Like, it's when you get this kind of like, they're scared of you a little bit, and they don't know if they can ask you questions, and then they come over and they watch you make your work, and they're like, oh my god, like, how'd you do that? And like, I love the idea of, like, I think of my legacy as like the relationships I've had here. Like, I think about Katie Zanto. I took a education fieldwork class with Katie. I am also doing my Master's of Arts in Teaching after this semester. I'll be continuing that. And we talked about how teaching is relationships. And I again, when you say legacy, I think about my experience working with younger people, making an impression on younger people at this school. And with my fellow BFAs, like, I've tried to, like, I've made some baked goods this semester, and I've like brought it in, and I try and check in with everybody, and it's important to me to like make those connections. Yeah, I mean, when I think of legacy, I just keep thinking of relationships and connections I've made. And I listened to a podcast with Doug Casebeer, who directed Anderson Ranch, which is an art center in Colorado. And he spoke about how the first thing you do when you get to work is to say hi to everybody. And you should go around and check on what you're doing. What are you working on? How are you? Don't just be silent in your work, you know? I think that this department particularly is like based on a community. And I'm so sad to be leaving it. And there's 6 BFAs that are leaving, and I'm wondering how it's going to change afterwards. But if there's any younger students that are doing your BFA, do your freaking BFA. Keep going, like push yourself. And I feel like I'm not even in my body right now, sitting up here. Like, it's so weird to be here because I've thought about it for so long. And yeah, I think that it's so crazy how time flies so fast. Like, I talked about it being perpetual and ambiguous, but it's also crazy to think about the future and think about like where I'm going to go next. And am I going to find a studio like this again in my life? I don't know. And I'm leaving a few of my plant beds here, so you guys have to start a garden after I leave.
All right, thank you so much for coming. I think I speak for all of us when I say that we have some awesome BFAs. Julia, Victor, you guys really did it up tonight. I'm so proud of the both of you. Please join us next Wednesday at 5 p.m. in the Tahoe Gallery for Nikki and Gabe's. Well, it's the same tournament. But join us for both of them, please. Yes. And we're so excited for that. Thank you so much for coming, and make sure that you go sit with some more of Julia's work. It's really worth the extra look. Thank you.